Hi, Leo. Welcome to your March 2018 Astro Update. It's Rena here, and this is a do-over video because I did omit the blue moon at the end of the month. I had the first one on the first day, but then I didn't include the last one. So I wanted to be as thorough as possible. And in March, Leo, there's a lot of energy in your 8th and 9th houses, and I can draw a connection between those two houses. To refresh your memory, the 8th house is the house of other people's resources. So a lot of times it can either be, let's say you're getting divorced and you have a business to split up or assets to split up and things like that. Or you have inheritance issues. Actually, to me, that could possibly be the biggest one because death is also a key word of the 8th house, as well as regeneration, which is an important companion to death. You know, people always get literal with the death thing, and they think, oh my God, I have a lot of 8th house energy, somebody's going to die, blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, something can die that needs to die, that needs to be totally transformed, and you can have that transformation. And so that's, if you talk about other people's money coupled with death, that could be inheritance. And then it's also sex. But I would add any kind of intimacy, because this is a water house, so emotions are a very important component of the 8th house, being under the rulership of Scorpio. So that's what's happening. So there's a lot of kind of intensity for you in March, and the sun is going to be there for most of the month. There could be some issues that involve like probate, estate issues that spill over from February. So it's possible that somebody in your life has died, but this would have probably been, I shouldn't say probably, most likely would have been something that happened before, maybe even long before, months before. So the month begins with the full moon on the 1st. Now, I didn't see what time it's happening. I saw on somebody else's video on the heading, it said 1st through 2nd. So apparently, maybe if you live in Europe, it's on the 2nd of the month. I'm not sure. But, you know, at the beginning of the month on one of those two dates. And it's going to be at 11 degrees of Virgo. And for you, this is going to fall in your 2nd house of earned income. So full moon in the 2nd house, at the very basic level, it could indicate that you are aware of something that's happening with your finances. It's being made known to you. Maybe you hear that you're not making as much as somebody else at your work who has that same position. And that awareness could spur you into action of some sort. Sometimes it can be endings. Maybe you're retiring, and so this particular income stream is ending. Just remember that with any ending, there's a beginning waiting for you. So it's not like this income stream ends and that's the end of my life. That's the end of my earnings for the rest of my life. No. It could be that you get a raise, actually, because the full moon can bring something to culmination. Or if you get paid sporadically, like once a month, if you're doing contract work, you may get your past, I never know what to call that. There's a term, I think, but back pay. That's the best I can do. But you may get a bonus. That's always a possibility. Or if you're a salesperson, you may get, I guess that's a bonus, but what do they call those? Commission. On the 6th of the month, we see Mercury and Venus both going into Aries. So fellow fire sign, friendly angle, 9th house. Having said that, this is an example of that transition from the 8th to 9th houses. Okay, so the 8th house is also, I didn't mention this, the 8th house is the house of the paranormal. And I like that. When I always like, even though, I'm doing this professionally, I always like to still go back and read information about the different houses, just always expand my knowledge base, because there are always more buzzwords. And I just heard, I just read something that it's paranormal, which is really great. Things that go bump in the night. So ghosts and things like that. However, I would also say metaphysics, okay? So anything, and some people would say the occult, anything involving astrology, the tarot, and things like that. So this could be a time for some Leos who really are into that stuff to explore it. And in the 9th house, that's the God house. So there is that connection spiritually, although you would say with the 9th house that it's more of a structure because it also deals with higher education. So it's like a framework for these things. The 8th house and the 12th houses are both water houses, very concerned with the 12th house is past lives and spiritual dimension, the 8th house metaphysics and the occult and that sort of thing. And that's not necessarily all that structured, okay, with dogma, like we would associate with the 9th house. So you have both of these things coming into play for some reason for you, where you're like getting exposed to ideas that are metaphysical and maybe trying to put it into the context of your own philosophical framework when things go into the 9th house, these Mercury and Venus. Now, Venus in the 9th house, because this is the house of foreign travel, can indicate that people that are traveling may actually meet somebody in their travels. Mercury is all about the mind, so you may be doing some academic study or teaching, and that could be a place where you meet somebody on a romantic level. I do want to mention, because I think I've even forgotten to mention these in some of these past videos, that there is going to be a Mercury retrograde in Aries. Okay, so this will be in that 9th house. And as such, you may rethink something along these lines. So it's possible that you have the money to go to school or go back to get your degree. And then you say, do I really want to go this route? That's not necessarily a done deal as the month of March comes to a close. On the 17th, Mars goes into Capricorn, and that's your 6th house of health. And some Leo people may actually be getting physically motivated to get to work out and to maybe achieve some kind of body goals. The 6th house is a house of health, and Mars is very active. So if you're doing something rather than dieting, this is more about doing something very vigorous, physical. And on the same day, the new moon is, and by the way, too, one thing I should mention is that it could also indicate some kind of conflict in the workplace. Now, going back to that full moon, and this is kind of interesting because this is 2 weeks later, on the same day, there's a new moon in Pisces, so that kind of completes that cycle. That could indicate that you find out that you're not getting paid as much as somebody else, and you have a little bit of conflict there because you may not be all that happy, much of a happy camper anymore, and you might be stirring things up. Only one possible interpretation. On the same day, there's a new moon in Pisces at 26 degrees of Pisces, and that's going to hit that 8th house. So if you've been having any kind of negotiations or other types of whatchamacallits, I don't know, I'm not saying like conflict, but any kind of situation where one person wants one thing and the other wants another thing, you probably are going to, I would say, possibly resolve it, or it's going to take on a new life around the 17th. And it's going to be a positive situation, being that it's new moon, and so some new beginning as a result of all of this. And you may feel this sense of relief because you feel that everything is basically solved. If there's any kind of contracts, actually, I mean, if it relates to like probate or something like that, I don't see a problem if it's around the 17th. Just realize that the Mercury retrograde that I was talking about is going to be on the 22nd. So from the 22nd of March until, whenever in April, I can't remember the exact, maybe mid-April, I'm not sure. I think it's the first week in April, but that's what's happening with that. So it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to sign anything during a Mercury retrograde. But, sometimes you don't have a choice, and it would be foolish to hold off if that could jeopardize something. And you have to trust the universe most of all. I think that a lot of these transits, including the retrogrades, they're a great roadmap, but it doesn't mean that you have to just take everything literally. I'm bringing up these points because it's kind of like a significant astrological event, but I don't do that to discourage people from taking inspired action if they feel so inclined. I was just reading something yesterday about Mercury retrograde from Gabby. I forgot what her last name is, but you probably know who she is. She's into meditation and all those things. I can't think of her last name, but anyway, she was talking about Mercury retrogrades, and she said that she launches a lot of things during Mercury retrograde, and doesn't affect her. She doesn't think it's a big deal. So I found that very inspiring, because we do tend to get very superstitious about it. Oh, Gabrielle Bernstein. It just came to me. So anyway, and then on the 31st, we have a couple of other transits. So we have Venus going into Taurus, and that's your 10th house of career. Very good for many things involving career, including money matters. So if you've had any dispute about money, that you may get recognized. 10th house is your place in the sun, okay? And it's your superiors may realize your worth and say, yes, this person definitely deserves more money, and you get that money. Also, it can make you very popular with others, and that can help you career-wise. But we do tend to look at attraction with Venus. So anything that you can attract that involves your career can be favored at this time. And for some people who are single, you might meet somebody connected to your career. And on that same day, it's that blue moon I was talking about, and it's at 10 degrees of Libra, and this falls in your third house of communications. So you may, and it's also siblings, your local area. It could be that you're done with where you live, and maybe you've lived in a certain place for a certain amount of time, and you're ready to move on, Leo. And that's kind of like the turning point for you. Maybe you don't move that day, but you move subsequently. And it can be finding out something about a sibling, maybe online, or even about anyone. You might even, there might be some relationship that you've been involved with, and you find a little tidbit about this person that you didn't know. Looking at their Facebook page, stalking their Facebook page. No. I always find it funny that they use the term stalking somebody's page when that person has made a public profile. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this, Leo. If you'd like a private reading, please click on the link below. Otherwise, have an awesome March. Bye.